Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Vector Lab. Today, we're with Anna. Anna, you're a solutions engineer at OpenAI. Can you start by introducing yourself and tell us more about your role and what excites you most about working on AI solutions and with customers at OpenAI?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Like Laura said, my name's Anna. I work on the solutions engineering team at OpenAI. I'm based in London. And I'd say I was really drawn to this role because it really sits at the intersection of this cutting edge technology and also real customer impact. So really every day I get to help customers solve problems in new ways, whether that's just making information more accessible, building AI solutions, or just simply, making people more productive. Yeah.
Great to have you here. Today, you're going to talk about connectors in ChatGPT Enterprise. It's been one of the most talked about new features, actually. And so, can you start by telling us which connectors are available today and just share a story of how customers are already using them, just so that everyone understands better what we talk about here?
Sure. Yeah. So today, connectors are available for a lot of the tools that enterprises and also consumers rely on. So things like Google Drive, OneDrive, GitHub, Dropbox, HubSpot, and more. And just to put it to an example, one SaaS company that I worked with actually connected their ChatGPT workspace to HubSpot so their product managers could really instantly pull patterns from customer feedback. So essentially, instead of combing through thousands of support tickets or sales notes or call transcripts, they just asked HubSpot connector, what features are customers most frustrated about this quarter? And ChatGPT delivered this prioritized list with links back to underlying conversations and certain customers. So it was a really, really cool use case to see connectors come to life.
Amazing. Thanks, Anna. And so, what are we trying to solve with this connector? So, what problem are we trying to solve, and why connectors are so important for the ChatGPT enterprise?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, really, at their core, connectors kind of solve the where is my information problem. So, knowledge and large organizations can be scattered across dozens of different systems. So, without connectors, employees and even consumers, for that matter, spend far too much time searching, switching between different applications, or even waiting for someone to respond if they needed to reach out to another person. So connectors let ChatGPT act as this single secure interface for that knowledge. So you can ask a question in plain English and just instantly get an answer that's grounded in either your company's data or your own personal G drive, let's say. So combining this with the capabilities that are already available, like web search and deep research, kind of really brings this more proprietary information and data to life.
Yeah, what I love about this is that there's a lot of pressure right now on dev teams to build RAG apps for everyone in their org. And sometimes those applications, instead of spending time building this, I love that ChatGPT is able to give you a RAG out of the box for a lot of the teams. For example, I know for your marketing team or your social media team, so that you don't have to build that and you can focus on more complex architecture as a dev. So I really love it for that reason. And so Anna, for someone who spends their day, for example, a typical dev spending their day in Google Drive, but also GitHub, how does it feel like when those systems are connected to ChatGPT? Because a lot of people in our audience are developers. So can you walk us through an example maybe of what that can look like?
Yeah, sure. So I can show you a demonstration, but just as a one sentence for that, I would say it really feels like a almost like a maze of going through folders to actually just having a conversation. So I'll walk you through maybe a demonstration of something like a newly hired developer getting up to speed on a new project. Does that sound good? Okay, so let's imagine you're a newly hired developer who just got started on a project and has to make sense of various code repositories, internal documentation like compliance and project strategy docs, all while trying to make a good impression. So this could really take days of getting up to speed. But by using ChatGPT plus connectors, and in this case, plus deep research as well, we can just toggle on, in this case, web search, GitHub, pointed at the proper repository, as well, in this case, SharePoint, which is what we use internally, and just send that prompt. And for anyone that's familiar with deep research, you'll probably know that like any good any good researcher, it comes back with follow-up questions. So for demonstration purposes, I'll just say use your best judgment, but you can really guide ChatGPT to the exact place where all of this information lives. So use your best judgment, send that off. And then that kicks off this research that happens in the background across all of these sources. It does take a little bit of time, so I pre-ran this so we could all take a look at the output. But you'll see the same prompt, the same follow-up questions here. And in just 13 minutes and looking across 17 different sources and completing 52 web searches, deep research and these connectors came back with this really comprehensive and properly cited report. So you can see, as a new developer, I now have, the repository summary. So I now have a much better understanding of the code base I'll be working with. If we scroll down a little bit farther, you'll see suggested improvements with links back to the exact online sources from where it found this information. And then if we scroll down even farther here, you can see it's doing a compliance comparison against internal documentation that we have in SharePoint. So in just 13 minutes, this probably saved me, 4 to 5 days of work just getting up to speed and getting onboarded quicker. So I really love this use case because it really shows how actually combining connectors with each other can lend itself to like huge value over time.
Totally agree that this is something not only if you're onboarding on a new company, but on a new project, right? Every time there is a new repo, just push it to deep sea research and that's it. Okay, so where do actual connectors show up and what is the change we experience across chat?
Yeah, I'll share my screen again, actually, to show you.
Because we've seen you can use those connectors within deep research, which I love, by the way. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Personal life, professional life. But then, if I understand, there's also connectors outside of deep research as well.
Yeah, exactly. So connectors are available anywhere where you'd expect to interact with knowledge of some kind. So they're available in regular chat. If you just select use connectors and have like a quick question that you just want a response from that particular source, you can use them with deep research, which is what I just showed, where you can toggle on multiple sources at once and actually have this native agent within ChatGPT go across all of them to collect all the information. And then eventually, hopefully, we'll have them in something called custom GPTs so that you can build almost like specialized assistants. So just to kind of paint a broader picture here, Chat could quickly and automatically pull like HubSpot data and give you a summary of your open opportunities, while deep research could synthesize really like long technical threads in repositories in GitHub. But yeah, both are available today.
So is there a lot of setup that I need to do to pre-configure these connectors?
No, I can show you actually that as well.
Just to clarify, though, here we're showing ChatGPT Enterprise, which is an enterprise offering. So for people who are more used to ChatGPT, like personal accounts, sometimes it differs a bit. So here, this is tailored for enterprises. Yeah.
Yeah, so I will say with enterprises, an admin does need to enable it for the entire company workspace. But after that, the experience is like relatively similar in the sense that you just need to add the connector. So if I select connect more here, you'll see a bunch of different ones that we have available. And if I were to enable any of these other ones, it's going to take me through just like a very standard OAuth process. So it would just be like me going in and logging to my Gmail here. And then I'll have that connector enabled in ChatGPT.
Amazing. And can you share with us an example of a wow moment where you've seen a customer first use connectors?
Yeah, sure. So this happened, a few weeks ago when we first released connectors, but I actually had almost like a newer CIO at this financial firm ask ChatGPT using the SharePoint connector to just summarize all of the board decks that we've done in the past year. And within seconds, it came back with this summary with direct links back to the PowerPoints that they had in SharePoint. And he kind of said, I've been asking my team to like synthesize this for me before just so like he could get up to speed faster. And that was like a real wow moment for him. So it was really cool to get to kind of show him how to do that and then allow him to try it on his own.
I think you have answered it with this question, but like, what are some unexpected or very creative ways where customers are using the connectors for, apart from kind of file search?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say that in terms of like creativity, the most creative use cases I've seen have come from actually enabling multiple connectors at once, like I showed in the demo. So to give you another example, that could be, turning on HubSpot plus web search plus file search and asking chat to prioritize the different opportunities or like product gaps based on revenue. And then in the same prompt, asking it to compare this with like other companies that have like had the similar issues and like what they did. And then from there, asking it to see if there's any initiatives internally that are happening and who they should potentially contact to get that project like up and running. So it's when you kind of need all of this information from all of these different sources to complete these tasks that would normally take you, sometimes months, even for something like that is really special.
Awesome. Now, let's pivot a bit because access control is always a big concern for admins. So, how does ChatGPT make sure it only shows me files that I'm already allowed to see? Does it enforce permissions? And can you give us an example of how that works in practice?
Yeah, sure. So, like I kind of showed when I was setting up Gmail, connectors inherit the permissions directly from the source system. And when you make the connection, it prompts each user to go through their authentication process as they enable the connector for their workspace. So if you can't see a file in Google Drive or SharePoint, for example, you won't see it in ChatGPT either. So let's say, HR restricts any access to like compensation documents. So even an administrator wouldn't be able to override that visibility because it's just inheriting the permissions that they would normally have in those sources. So ChatGPT would simply return nothing in a situation like that.
Good. And then a follow-up question on that is, when you are discussing to security teams, what is the number one concern they usually raise about the connectors, and what is the answer?
Yeah, so I would say the number one concern is actually something that we talk about even outside of connectors, and it's more about like proprietary data leakage. So people are always asking, is ChatGPT going to be storing or training their models using our own HubSpot customer data or our proprietary docs in Google Drive? And the answer is no. It's connector data nor any data in the workspace for our enterprise customers is never used to train our models. And again, the responses are scoped to the user's identity as well. So
Awesome. So that would be like one of the misconceptions that people have. They ask a lot about privacy and how OpenAI like trains the model and if they train on customer data.
Yeah, exactly. Or like data leakage, even like across employee to employee as well. So it sends its scope to that individual user. It's not like that someone else in the workspace would then be able to see that information.
Well, and then if we shift a bit from an admin point of view, so how much control do admins have? And how can we apply like a role-based access control system in practice?
Yeah, good question. So when we originally released connectors, there wasn't necessarily any role-based access controls around them. An admin, of course, had the control to enable a connector for a workspace, but it was kind of an all employee or no employees once you enable it. So what we have just recently released is actually having role-based access controls around connectors. So especially when you're first using them and maybe figuring out exactly how they interact with your proprietary data, you can do that with now just a subset of users and use RBAC or role-based access controls to uh, kind of lock down exactly who's able to use them. So it has been kind of a hugely asked item from our customers, and we're really excited that it's been launched.
So now let's imagine I'm convinced and I'm about to roll out connectors. What would be the number one advice that you'd give to help, knowledge workers, employees get the most out of those connectors?
Yeah, good question. I would say this is probably pretty similar to what my advice would be if a company was also thinking about rolling out ChatGPT, but it would be to pick 1 to 5 super high impact use cases that you want to use to try out connectors and kind of highlight their value. Maybe it's for a particular team or a particular, let's say, role within your company. So you could do that. And from there, once people see how much time is saved or kind of the amazing insights that they may have missed had they just been combing through all this information on their own, its adoption then typically spreads pretty naturally. It's just good to start small with those high impact use cases and then go from there.
And one more question on this is like what are the best practice on how do we balance access and control? Again, from an admin perspective, like you can give all the access or you can control everything. So how do you balance that?
Do you mean more about
the role-based access controls?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let's say you wanted to start with those, high impact use cases. Something that we oftentimes do with customers is we'll have something called like a champions network where maybe some particular power users from various different teams have already been identified. So maybe what an admin could do is actually give these particular individuals access to connectors, have them try them out, provide feedback, things like that. And that could be a good starting place for then eventually rolling it out from there.
So test, iterate.
Yeah,
First
exactly.
test, then grow. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Now, the inevitable word, there's a lot of buzz around MCP.
Yeah.
I think it's the longest we've ever done without talking about MCP in one of our videos. Where does it fit in connectors today? And what kind of use cases do you think it will open up in the future?
Yeah, good question. Let me share my screen again so I can show you. So this kind of takes the first party connectors that we have built already into the platform kind of to a next level. So if you want to build your own custom connector, you can actually do that via MCP. So if there's a particular source that isn't a part of those that we've already released, and there's kind of an MCP server that you can connect to, it's really easy to set up custom connectors. And then that's going to work just like all the connectors that I've showed already. So it will be able to search through that information and synthesize it all just using natural language in ChatGPT.
Yes, I love this, to be honest. For me, that is so cool because what I'm thinking all the time lately is, in a business where you try to build a product and then you have to build a web app for your consumers of this data source or product to go and access. Now you don't have to do that at all. Like you can create an MCP server and just link it to where the users are, and now they are on ChatGPT Enterprise, right? So I can just attach the MCP server and just fetch data, for example, from Databricks. And that I feel it's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So powerful. And
Yeah.
you can also like use OAuth. So it still has the whole like inheriting the permissions of the user flow. I know, Laura, you built a custom connector with Databricks, correct? Could you
Yes,
talk about it?
I didn't build. I built a demo using the API to connect to like Databricks MCPs. But if you go back, I think somebody else on the team built a custom one. Yeah, that connects to Databricks. So really cool. So yeah, you could connect and then just ask questions in natural language about your data, and then it gives you an answer, which
Very
is
cool.
really cool. Yeah.
Cool. So last question, Anna, is if you think of the future, so how do you see connectors evolving? And are there any particular systems or types of integrations that you are excited about?
Yeah, I would say in terms of how they're evolving, from what I've understood and from feedback from customers is, the role-based access controls around connectors is a great first step, but it would be great to have a bit more like governance around them. So building almost some sort of like, or I could foresee us building some sort of like registry where it's easier to control, what connectors the workspace has access to, and even your custom connectors could live there. So I would say like, yeah, having more governance around it, and then also building in more mechanisms so we can scale the amount of connectors that we just offer through the platform. Again, I can't say like the exact connectors or companies that we might partner with to do that, but I would say scaling that out is also what's going to be happening.
Amazing. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.